Hey, thank you so much, recurring supporters. Because of your help, I was able to produce this episode. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Ari. Thank you, Thea. Thank you, Nathalie. I'm gonna thank everyone after the show. First, let's get started. Welcome to the Lesbian Romantic Podcast. This is Worth the Risk, Part 20. Beguinage. Beguinage. It's a word I had never heard. Ever. I had to Google it because I needed it. Beguinage. Nathalie studied Raven's body intently. The pathway by the water was narrow, and she was walking behind Raven rather than next to her. This allowed her to study Raven's figure brazingly. Raven's well-shaped calves were accentuated by the tight, washed-off jeans she was wearing. When Nathalie first saw Raven in these jeans back at the museum, her mouth had gone dry. Raven looked so darn sexy in them. Raven's t-shirt was casual and loose. Nathalie loved how it rested on Raven's hips and the swell of her buttocks. She also loved the shape of Raven's back. She enjoyed watching the lines of Raven's shoulder blades shift under the fabric. Raven's head turned to the left and right as she took in the view. Her braids were pulled up into a tight bun. Her backpack hung loosely over one shoulder. The sun made the golden hoops in her ears look extra shiny. The pathway was one of Nathalie's favorites, and she had wanted to share it with Raven. The river was always so peaceful. The trees and plants hanging over the pathway were green and luscious. It was usually very calm here. Only locals knew about this path by the water. It was the perfect place to steal a kiss or more. Nathalie felt something stir in the pit of her stomach as she imagined kissing Raven. She bit down on her lower lip. A moment later, Raven stopped to point at something across the water. Nathalie used the opportunity to slip an arm around her waist from behind. Raven covered Nathalie's hand with her own before asking, "What is that over there?" It's, Nathalie started, but then had trouble finding the right words as she felt Raven press into her. Their bodies were touching from chest to hip, and it made Nathalie's heartbeat skyrocket. "It's like an old housing complex for nuns," she finally said, brushing her lips over the skin of Raven's neck. "A beguinage?" Raven asked, arching her back a little. "Yes, that," Nathalie croaked in Raven's ear. "God, you feel so good," she added. Raven placed both of her hands on the metal railing and arched her back even more. Nathalie whimpered as Raven's buttocks pressed into her center. She closed her eyes and moved her hands to Raven's hips. Their bodies moved together for a few heart-stopping seconds. Nathalie buried her face in Raven's hair and bit back a moan. Her hand slid down over firm curves until it reached Raven's inner thigh. "I want to feel you," she whispered into Raven's ear. "Yes," Raven said, pressing her cheek against Nathalie's lips. "Please." Nathalie moved her hand up. Her fingertips traced the seam of Raven's jeans, causing her to let out a heavy breath. Nathalie slowly stroked up and down, mesmerized by what she felt beneath the fabric. A dog barking in the distance pulled her from the moment. She quickly glanced left and right. In the far distance, she spotted the dog. It was a large brown one, with the owner following suit, yelling commands now and then. Nathalie buried her face in Raven's neck. "Oh, someone is coming," she groaned. Raven moaned in frustration. Shit. Nathalie stroked up and down the seam of the jeans one more time. She heard Raven's breath catch. Nathalie rested her chin on Raven's shoulder and saw that her knuckles whitened as she tightened her grip on the metal railing. The dog barked again. It was closer now. Nathalie reluctantly straightened and stepped back. Raven turned around slowly. They held each other's gaze. The electricity in the air between them was off the charts. Nathalie blinked a few times, steadying herself. Her whole body was throbbing with desire and anticipation. At first, she didn't fully register Raven's fingers entwining with her own. She looked down at their hands and smiled. "You're so beautiful," Raven said, her voice hoarse. Nathalie looked back up, her cheeks glowing. "So are you." Raven's thumb stroked over her cheek. "I love your face." Giggling, Nathalie's eyes darted around. You're making me feel self-conscious." "I can see that. You're blushing," Raven said, kissing Nathalie's cheek tenderly. "And it makes you even cuter." Nathalie shut her eyes again. The sensations coursing through her were so overwhelming. It was almost like a magical mix of tenderness and raw desire. The sound of enthusiastic panting reached Nathalie's ears. She glanced to the side and saw that the dog and its owner now were only about 15 feet away. Nathalie smiled shyly at the dog owner, briefly debating if they should start walking. But Raven didn't want to seem to go anywhere. She pressed closer to her, making room for the man to pass. "How far away is your place?" Raven asked once the dog and the man had walked by. "Another 15 minutes or so," Nathalie replied. A drop of sweat rolled down her back. She raised her eyebrows, placing her hand above her eyes. She had completely forgotten about the heat for a few minutes. Now, it suddenly seemed to swallow her whole again. "I should probably start walking then," Raven said breathily, tracing Nathalie's jawline with kisses. Nathalie tilted her head, giving Raven more access. She looked up at the blue sky as Raven started kissing her neck. Raven's tongue flicked over her skin playfully, and she heard soft sounds of approval soon after. Nathalie's head started spinning. "So hot," she gasped, reaching for the metal railing behind Raven. "Sorry. Are you okay?" Nathalie nodded, feeling a little silly. She steadied herself before meeting Raven's worried gaze. "I think I need to cool down," Nathalie grinned. Raven picked up her backpack and slung it over her shoulder. "Yes, let's get you inside." They started kissing again as soon as Nathalie closed the door behind them. Nathalie fell back against the door with a soft thud, and Raven immediately pressed closer. Her hands moved through Nathalie's hair as their tongues explored wildly. Raven's thigh pressed into Nathalie, making her gasp for air every time Raven's hips moved. Nathalie slid her hand under Raven's shirt, eager to feel more of her. Raven's skin was wet with perspiration, and Nathalie's fingers slid over her back. Their bodies moved together in an increasingly feverish rhythm. Raven raked her teeth over Nathalie's neck, her breathing loud and ragged. Nathalie tugged at Raven's shirt, wanting it off immediately. Raven straightened and pulled her shirt over her head. Some of her braids had escaped from the elastic band and fell onto her beautiful shoulders. Nathalie looked down at Raven's beige bra and the full breasts it held. She lowered her head. Nathalie kissed Raven's chest, enjoying the salty taste of Raven's skin. She followed the lines of Raven's breast, encouraged by Raven's increasingly rapid breathing. She found Raven's hardened nipple, still covered by the bra, and closed her lips around it. Raven moaned. It was a low, raspy sound that sent shockwaves of electricity down Nathalie's spine. Her hand cupped Raven's other breast as she sucked playfully. She loved the increasingly desperate sounds coming from Raven. She felt Raven's nails dig into her shoulders when she lowered herself more to kiss the underwire of her bra. Her lips and tongue soon explored the soft curves of Raven's belly. She fell onto her knees, her hands holding on to firm hips. Her lips and tongue soon explored the soft curves of Raven's belly. Raven's fingers closed in Nathalie's hair, making Nathalie gasp. She pressed her cheek against Raven's lower abdomen, taking in a deep breath. Her hands slid over Raven's thighs, down and then back up. She tugged at the button of Raven's jeans with her teeth, earning another moan from Raven. Nathalie moaned along, placing hungry kisses down the zipper of Raven's pants. Her hands cupped Raven's behind. A drop of sweat rolled down Nathalie's forehead just as she started to open Raven's jeans. She was reminded again of the suffocating heat. Her t-shirt stuck to her back, and the damp linen of her pants made her thighs feel itchy. She looked up at Raven, an idea popping up in her mind. She narrowed her eyes and kept staring at Raven until Raven opened her eyes. The fire in them was wild and furious. "Want to continue this in the shower?" Nathalie croaked and kissed the skin just above Raven's waistline. Raven's eyes widened before a slow smile spread across her face. "Yes," she said in a low voice. "Excellent idea." Nathalie pushed herself up. She was suddenly very eager to get out of these clothes. She held Raven's gaze as she undid the button of her pants and let it drop to the floor. Raven looked down for a moment, a satisfied smile making her lips curve up. Without thinking, Nathalie pulled her shirt over her head, letting it fall next to her pants. She stood in front of Raven in her underwear and boldly let herself be taken in by Raven's fiery eyes. "Your turn," she said after a moment, nodding at Raven's jeans. Raven bit down on her lip before tugging at the button of her pants. She lowered it very slowly, almost like she was dancing. Nathalie held her breath until the jeans finally hit the floor and Raven stepped out of them. "You're so beautiful," Nathalie said, gasping for air. Raven reached for her hand and squeezed it. "So are you." Nathalie's throat tightened as she inhaled shakily. "Wow," she said. "What?" Raven asked, tilting her head. Shaking her head, Nathalie said, "Nothing. Just intense." "Yeah," Raven said softly and ran her thumb over Nathalie's fingers. They smiled at each other. Then they walked to the stairs, still holding hands. Nathalie's blood thrummed in her veins louder with every step she climbed. She felt like she was approaching a point of no return in her life. The window was still open in the small bathroom, letting in a welcome breeze. The air wasn't as suffocating here. There wasn't much room for them to move around together, though. Raven cupped Nathalie's face and pulled her into another kiss. Nathalie felt the cold surface of the sink press into her thigh as she parted her lips to Raven's probing tongue. There was no more holding back now. Their underwear was discarded in between kisses without any further ceremony. They stumbled into the shower. Nathalie turned on the water behind her back. They both shrieked when it was colder than expected. It didn't make them stop, though. Giggling, they embraced and kissed again as the water ran down their bodies. The heat of the water came quickly, filling the small bathroom with steam. The sounds of their ragged breathing and moans bounced off the tiles, filling Nathalie's head with echoes of their lovemaking. This was part 20 of Worth the Risk. Thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Serena, Maya, Trinda, and Carrie. Thank you, Melinda, Ken, Bella, Sabriel, Jay, Charlie is a good boy, Marina, Bruna, Bob, Lori, and Ricky. Super merci Heidi, Elle, Kat, Patrick, Sven, Valerie, Kat, Melissa, Miranda, and Bree. Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Emily, The Dash, Ariana, Mary, Michaela, Charlotte, Marie-Hélène, Patricia, and Ashley. Super thank you, Annie, Macy, Amber, and Queen of the Paradise, Delisa. Thank you to all recurring supporters. If I didn't include you in the list, it's probably because you are supporting me on the website, and I didn't want to assume that I can mention your name. So if you'd like to be included in the shout-out, just let me know that I can do that. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I will be back in 2 weeks for the last episodes before my vacation. Mirielle and I are taking a vacation, our first one in, I think, years. Like we're actually going on a vacation. It feels like a new thing after COVID, you know? So we're looking forward to that, but one more episode to go before I am taking some time off. All right, take care, stay safe, and I will see you soon. Bye.